A new protocol just landed that's trying to become the USB for AI agents. A new open source tool wants to make your AI product more resilient. And OpenAI dropped a report detailing which jobs are most likely to actually change. We'll cover all of it and talk about what really matters if you're building products today. No BS AI briefing brought to you by Proactive AI. Welcome back. I'm your host Vikash, and this is where builders get straightforward AI news without the fluff. Alright, let's jump right into the headlines for the week of April 19th, 2026. First up, a new plugin called Coder is bringing agentic coding directly into JetBrains IDEs. Now, agentic coding sounds like a buzzword, but what it really means is that the AI isn't just suggesting the next line of code. It's capable of taking on a whole task by itself. You give it a goal and it works autonomously to try and achieve it right inside your development environment. What's interesting here is that it's not tied to just one model. It supports a bunch like Qwen, GLM, and Minimax, which means you, as a developer or a team lead, can actually tune for cost and latency. Need a quick, cheap completion? Use a smaller model. Need a complex problem solved? Route it to the big guns. And it also integrates with something called the Model Context Protocol, or MCP, which we'll be talking a lot more about in a bit. For builders, this is another step toward the IDE becoming a true copilot, not just a fancy autocomplete. Next, there's a new open source project on GitHub called OmniRoute, and this one tackles a problem I know a lot of us have worried about: vendor lock-in and reliability. OmniRoute acts as a universal AI gateway. You point your application to its single OpenAI compatible endpoint, and behind the scenes, it can route your requests across more than 100 different LLM providers. Think of it like a smart traffic controller for your AI calls. If one provider is down or slow, it can automatically retry with another. This is huge. It has built-in load balancing, automatic retries, and fallbacks. For builders, this means you can make your product way more reliable without writing a ton of complex error handling logic yourself. And maybe even more importantly, you can start optimizing for cost. You could route all your critical customer facing tasks to a premium model, but send all your internal non-urgent batch jobs to the cheapest model available. It gives you flexibility and resilience, two things that are hard to come by in this space. And that brings me to our third headline, which is the big one today. The Model Context Protocol, or MCP, is now being officially positioned as the de facto standard for how AI agents talk to different tools. A post from the GetKnit blog lays it all out. MCP is now under the governance of the Linux Foundation, and it has buy-in from all the heavyweights. Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, and Microsoft are all supporting it. What does this actually do? It creates a common language. Instead of you having to build a custom integration for every single tool your agent needs to use, one for Slack, another for GitHub, a completely different one for Salesforce, MCP provides a standardized way for an agent to discover and use these tools. There are already standardized integrations for massive enterprise platforms like GitHub, Slack, Google Drive, Salesforce, and Jira. For builders, this is a massive accelerator. It means you can stop wasting time on the plumbing of integrations and focus on the actual logic and value of your agent. This is a sign that the agent stack is starting to mature finally. Shifting gears from infrastructure to application, Monday.com published a really grounded case study on how they're using generative AI in their sales workflows. And what I liked about this is that it wasn't about hype or replacing people. It was all about augmentation. They showed how AI can automate the tedious prep work for sales reps. Things like researching a prospect, drafting initial outreach emails, or helping with sales forecasting. This frees up the reps to do what humans are actually good at: building relationships and closing deals. The key pattern here for any product builder is to look for the prep work in any high value workflow. Where are your users spending hours gathering data or drafting documents before they can even get to the core of their job? That's the sweet spot for AI. Automate the setup, but keep the human in the loop for the critical decisions. It's a clear real world example of productivity gains in a revenue generating role, and it's a model we can all learn from. And finally, OpenAI released a report called the AI Jobs Transition Framework. And it gives us some interesting data on how labor markets might actually be impacted. They break it down into four categories. About 18% of jobs have a high automation risk. Another 24% are likely to be reorganized, meaning the tasks within the job will change significantly. 12% could actually see growth, and the largest group, 46%, will see less change. But here's the most important insight for builders. The report highlights that roles with high exposure to AI, but also high human necessity, are the ones least likely to be fully automated. They use examples like teachers and nurses. An AI can help a teacher prepare a lesson plan, but it can't manage a classroom of 30 kids. It can help a nurse analyze patient data, but it can't provide human comfort. So, when you're thinking about what products to build, this framework can help you target the right verticals. Focus on augmenting those high necessity roles, because that's where you'll find users who are eager for help, not afraid of being replaced. Okay, let's do a deep dive on the story that I think is the most important one this week, the standardization of the Model Context Protocol, or MCP. So, what happened here in simple terms? MCP is basically a universal adapter for AI agents. For the past few years, if you wanted to build an agent that could, say, read a file from Google Drive, then post a summary to Slack, and then create a task in Jira, you'd have to build 3 separate custom and brittle integrations. Each one would have its own authentication, its own data formats. It was a mess. It was slow and expensive. MCP aims to solve this by creating a single open standard for how an agent discovers what a tool can do and then actually uses it. The fact that it's now under the Linux Foundation and backed by Google, OpenAI, Microsoft, and Anthropic means it has serious momentum. This isn't some side project, it's being set up as core infrastructure for the next wave of AI. So, why does this matter right now? Because friction is the enemy of innovation. Every hour a developer spends writing boilerplate code to connect to a new API is an hour they're not spending on making their product smarter or more useful. Standardization here is like the invention of the shipping container. Before shipping containers, loading a ship was a chaotic, bespoke process. After everything just fit, it was standardized. MCP is trying to be the shipping container for agent tools. It commoditizes the integration layer. This lowers the barrier to entry for building powerful multi-tool agents that can perform complex real-world tasks. The entire ecosystem can now move faster because everyone agrees on how the pieces should connect. So, who should be paying close attention to this? Well, if you're a startup founder or an indie hacker, this is fantastic news. It means you can now build agents that compete with those from much larger teams because you don't have to reinvent the wheel on integrations. You can just plug into the MCP ecosystem and instantly get access to tools like Salesforce and Jira, which are critical for selling into businesses. If you're a product manager or an engineering leader at a larger company, this makes adopting agent-based workflows much less risky. You can be confident that the tools you build will be able to connect to the enterprise systems your company already runs on. It's no longer a science project, it's becoming a legitimate part of the enterprise software stack. Here's how I'd think about it as a builder. This is a classic infrastructure enabling application story. The internet had TCP, IP, the web had HTTP and APIs. The agent economy needs MCP. It's the plumbing. For years, we've seen demos of amazing agents that can do 10 things at once, but they were mostly brittle demos. MCP is the boring, unsexy work that makes those demos a reality in production. So, the opportunity isn't necessarily in building a better MCP. The opportunity is in using MCP to build a best in class agent for a specific vertical, an amazing AI agent for financial analysts or for marketing teams or for HR managers. You can now focus 100% on the domain logic on the user experience, on what makes your agent uniquely valuable, because the plumbing is increasingly being taken care of for you. And now for my no BS take. Is this hype? No. This is real, this is a genuine infrastructure milestone. But it's not a magic wand. MCP enables tool use, but it doesn't solve the core hard problems of agent reliability, reasoning, or cost management. Your agent can still get stuck in loops, it can still misunderstand a user's intent, and it can still rack up a huge API bill. An MCP gives your agent hands, but it doesn't make its brain smarter. So celebrate this step forward because it's a big one, but stay focused on the hard work of building a truly robust and reliable product on top of this new foundation. If you're finding this useful, hit follow in your podcast app right now. It takes 2 seconds and it's the best way to make sure you don't miss the next briefing. Alright, if you want one practical takeaway from today's episode that you can try this week, here it is. Experiment with the open source OmniRoute gateway to test multi-provider resilience for your product. This is for anyone who has an AI feature that relies on a single provider like OpenAI or Anthropic, and you get that little knot in your stomach every time you think, what happens if their API goes down? This experiment will help you answer that question and build a more robust system. Here's how you can do it in under an hour. First, go to the OmniRoute GitHub page. The source material has the link. Clone the repository to your local machine and follow their basic setup instructions. It's designed to be pretty straightforward. Second, you'll need API keys for at least 2 or 3 different LLM providers. You don't need to pay for expensive models here. You can use free tiers or very cheap models just for this test. Go into the OmniRoute configuration file and add your keys. You're essentially telling the gateway and here are the providers I have available to me. Third, write a very simple script, a few lines of Python will do, that sends a request not directly to OpenAI but to your local OmniRoute endpoint. Then run the script and watch the OmniRoute logs. You should see it successfully route your request to one of your configured providers. Now for the fun part, go into the configuration and temporarily disable your primary provider, or just put in a fake API key to simulate a failure. Run your script again. What you should see is OmniRoute detect the failure and then automatically retry the request with your second or third provider. It just works. Why is this 60-minute experiment so valuable? Because reliability is a feature. Your users don't care about the LLM you use, they care that your product works when they need it. Setting up a tool like OmniRoute moves you from a single point of failure to a resilient multi-provider setup. It's a foundational step towards building a professional production-grade AI application, and it might just help you sleep a little better at night. That's it for today's No BS AI briefing. If this helped, follow the show in your podcast app and share it with one builder you know. And if you've got questions or topics you want covered, connect with me on LinkedIn and send them over. See you in the next briefing.